Greetings. I'm Craig DeRoche, the CEO of Family Policy Alliance, and today, as always, we're talking about how life in our country, about how policies that affect faith and family, raising our children, make a powerful difference in our child's life, of whether or not they're on the right path or the wrong path. Today, we're joined by a very influential state senator out of South Carolina, Mike Reichenbach, and he is also a Statesman graduate. Folks, the Statesmen Academy, because of your support, has over 240 graduates serving in 41 state capitals today. Senator Reichenbach is one of them, and he joins us on the show, and he's going to tell us about his own personal testimony as well, and what he's doing for families here in South Carolina. Senator, it's good to be with you.
Greg, it's good to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you were in our Statesman Academy a couple years ago now, right?
It was a wonderful experience. My wife, Sharice, and I, who serves in the Senate with me, we both came down and made a lot of great connections, but also learned a lot about some of the social issues and how to make good policy to address some of the issues.
Yeah, so tell me, a state senator in South Carolina, what is that job? How many people you represent? Where's your district and all the rest of that?
Sure. Well, our General Assembly, we have a bicameral, we have 46 senators. Uh, I'm the senator for Florence County, and we represent approximately 115,000 constituents here in I would say toward the coast of South Carolina. We're about an hour and 15 minutes west of Myrtle Beach.
Okay. Beautiful area, probably experiencing better weather than we're experiencing in Detroit or District of Columbia, where I'm joining you today. Um, so South Carolina, and you are serving in the legislature now. I have heard your story and some others in our networks, but you have a personal story that drives some of your work here for pro-life, pro-family, public policies. Tell our audience about your own personal testimony here.
Well, I appreciate you asking, Craig. When I ran for the Senate, I wanted to run because of my business acumen and business owner and understanding financial statements and that background. But the life issue is incredibly important to me. In 1971, a young 14-year-old girl gets pregnant by her 15-year-old boyfriend. She goes home, tells her mom her boyfriend left and that she's pregnant, and her mom gives her three choices. You can abort the baby, you can put the baby into foster care, or you can keep the baby. But if you keep the baby, you can't come home. You're 14, you're an embarrassment, you can't raise a child, and I'm not going to help you. So make a decision. The young woman decided to birth me, put me into the foster care system. I was really blessed because I was adopted by a wonderful family, Ed and Shirley Rickenbaugh. But if you know phonetics at all, Craig, the last name Rickenbaugh, phonetically it's Reichenbach. So I was adopted by an all-white German family in a small rural farm town in Ohio. They never intended on adopting me. They just happened to see me at a foster family that was related to them. So they adopted me, but Craig, what they taught me was about faith and hard work and discipline and reliance on God was going to be my identity. And that was how I would navigate this world as a black child in an all white family in an all white town. A family who loved me, but didn't know how to do some of the things like how do you do nappy hair? How do you take care of a child in an environment that's not going to be easy? But they raised me to learn who I was and that God was going to design a path for me moving forward. So I understand that the sanctity of life is something that we need to protect. I wouldn't be here if that young girl hadn't given me an opportunity. I met her when I was 18, and she told me the story that she felt something inside of her. Now I look back and I really do believe it was God's voice telling her that despite all the reasons she had to abort me, give me the opportunity for life. And that's what I think we need to be fighting for as legislators.
Well, that's an amazing story, and thank you for sharing it with us and our audience. And you also say it's not just about the life that we have and protecting life, but it's about being involved in a life where fathers can be involved. pointed out in our show prep that 40% of children in South Carolina are being raised in a single parent home, and that's common in other states to have percentages that high as well. What what can be done about that? We know the disadvantages that children have when they're raised in single family homes. Senator?
Yeah, it's a great question. The conversation of the importance of fathers isn't just a moral or an ethical issue. The numbers drive why it makes sense. Again, as an accountant, as a business owner, we run our businesses on our P&Ls and our balance sheet and looking at how the numbers make sense. And the numbers clearly show that when a father is involved in the rearing of a child, with discipline, with their schooling, with their ability to mature, the outcomes are better. And there's an important theory called the success sequence that shows that when four items are done in order, you graduate from high school, you gain gainful employment or pursue secondary education, then get married, then have a child, your percentages of poverty go significantly lower. And the reason that's important is because parenting is hard. It's not to take away from single parents or single mothers in particular, or from grandparents raising their children, but parenting is hard. If you're working, you're exhausted when you come home. To help with homework, to help discipline, to help feed. I mean, all that goes into being a parent. It's an exhausting process. So having two is better than one. And it's not just the theology behind it. It's not just a godly principle to tell us right and wrong because it's biblical. It's because it's actually better for us. And I think it's important that we let young people in particular realize that actions have consequences and there's a better quality of life available if that success sequence is followed and you raise children as a family.
Senator, you've also shared that 71% of kids that are having a child as a teenager come from a fatherless home. In other words, a fatherless home leads to more unexpected pregnancies. There's a correlation there. What do you think that that's showing us?
Yeah. A large part of that correlation, Craig, is that children in particular, most individuals, most humans, but children in particular, are highly susceptible toward learned behavior. They emulate what they see. And when children are often raised in a single parent family at home without a father figure there, they become accustomed to an ideology that growing up like that is what they learn. It's what is normalized. So when you see that behavior, it starts often a generation, cyclical patterns there where getting pregnant becomes the best alternative because their mom did it and their mother did it. And the next thing you know, you're having generations of folks that are growing up in poverty because of the socioeconomic benefits that are lost when it's a single parent.
Well, that's it is a cycle, and but that's the bad news, and you've actually you've been at this for a while, and you've got some good news, and we've got some hope too. We've got a new administration that was just sworn in Washington, D.C. that seems to be bringing more pro-family policies right on day one, right? So, where's our hope? Where's some of the good news coming for families right now?
Well, I know within South Carolina, within our General Assembly, as a state senator, we've made the realization that we can't legislate morality. We have a job to do in the legislature, and we'll continue to do our job to change the hearts and the minds and the actions of people. It's going to take more than passing a law. And I think the encouraging news right now is that it isn't just churches, it isn't just civic groups, but even schools, public schools, organizations that may not even be in the past open toward this conversation realize that this is not about pushing a faith or an ideology on folks. There's science, there's research, there's statistics that show that the outcomes are better when you have a family unit, the nuclear family raising children. So I think the encouraging news is that it creates doors and avenues for folks like myself to have a platform to come in and talk about. Uh, we can pass all the laws that you could imagine. It doesn't change behavior. So men, women, let's stand up. Let's have the conversations. Let's be bold in our conservatism. Let's be bold in our faith. Let's be bold in our messaging that there is a better way to move forward. And that if young people, if you don't want to revisit the patterns you've seen before, the patterns of poverty, don't count on the government to fix your problems. Craig, you were part of the General Assembly. Where I'm in the General Assembly. We do the best we can, but government isn't great at solving problems. Government is better at stepping out of the way when possible, focusing only on the core functions and letting families raise their children, letting the private industry, the private enterprise do more than what the government was doing.
We're here with Senator Reichenbach, and he's out of South Carolina. He's a graduate of the Statesmen program put on by Family Policy Alliance every year, where state legislators can get involved in learning the skills that they will need to be successful. Folks, it's been amazing. We have 240 graduates in 41 state capitals, three of which have gone on to be Speaker of the House, several more majority and minority leaders in the Senate, budget committees, you name it. And we're just trying to help people where they are when God has given them the privilege, as they have with the senator here, to serve families. We're hearing some of the bad news about fatherless families. We're hearing some of the good news, though, of what's changing around down there in South Carolina, and we're hearing it from somebody who knows the difference that life can make when you're brought into a good adoptive family. So, what are some of the ideas, Senator, that you have to make adoption great again? You know, you're a story of where that had such a powerful impact in your life with your adoptive parents providing for you. Are there ideas that you have in South Carolina or just in general for our country that we can be doing this year to promote life through adoption?
Yeah, I sure do, Craig, and thank you for asking. Yeah, I sit on 5 committees within the Senate, standing committees. One of them is the Family and Veterans Affairs Committee. I chair the Child Welfare Subcommittee, and as chairman of that committee, I think it's a responsibility for those of us who believe in the pro-life movement to realize that pro-life begins when a mother makes the bold and courageous decision to give that child birth. That's not the end, that's just the beginning. The next steps are how we, as in the pro-life community, circle the wagon, so to speak, to encourage that mother, to support the mother, and if available, encourage that father to play the role. He was a part of the conception. So I think the pro-life movement has a wonderful opportunity. Roe versus Wade being overturned allows the state governments to have more sway into the decision-making process. But the pro-life community and those of us in the legislature, especially those of us in family affairs types of committees, now need to do more to make sure we make affordable and safe and accessible adoption and foster care so that children are taken care of. But the families that want to raise children, that want children, that are interested in adoption, who may not have a lot of means, that there's mechanisms and avenues available to make adoption better and to support those who choose to keep their baby and take that bold, courageous decision.
Well, folks, I tell my fiscal conservative friends that providing for the child in the foster care system, the child looking to be adopted, is not welfare, folks. That child does not, by definition, have parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents available to them. It is the responsibility of the state. A good state could properly be judged by how well their investment is in this space for the children that do not have parents to raise them. And Lord knows there's a lot of work to do. So, Jesus, help us in South Carolina, help us all across our country. And as I said, making foster care. I didn't, Donald Trump, our president, did not say that, but let's hope he does someday,
Right.
Senator. Make adoption great again. But there's so much we can do. And this week, There's a lot of groups coming together because we have the March for Life, Senator. And for our audience, the March for Life has been going on for decades. It's in Washington, D.C., roughly at this time every year. It's not, it doesn't change because of a presidential swearing in and celebrating the lives of people yet born and the importance that we protect all lives. We're talking about protecting the lives of children after they're born, respecting them, encouraging the parents to be a little more selfless instead of selfish and not order your life around who you have sex with, but your responsibilities. Your children is who you should order your life around and raising them, Senator. But as we're celebrating the March for Life this week, what are some of the things in South Carolina we could be looking at to protect life? What are the things that your hopes are for this term in South Carolina to protect the lives of the unborn?
Well, that's a great question. This past um, a couple weeks ago in South Carolina, we held our pro-life weekend, and that's a wonderful occasion for those who believe in the sanctity of life to get together and to encourage one another and to encourage our boldness. That's a term that I think we can't use enough because we need to be bold in the conversation, not hateful, not mean, but we need to be bold to talk about that life does begin, that not just as a biblical tenet, but put a face to the faceless and a voice to the voiceless, to talk about stories such as my own and many, many others of when our life was in the balance and a bold, courageous woman makes a decision to give us life. That here's what that does. Here's the opportunity that creates. We actually adopted our son as well. So we need to have more of the conversations. But again, even with the March for Life, I think it's a wonderful occasion for those in the pro life movement to support and to encourage mothers who are struggling with the decision. You are loved. You matter. You care. God has a plan not just for your life, but for your unborn child's life. Don't extinguish that before they're even given an opportunity, but to do it with a strong modicum of love and support and let them know that they are not going to walk this path alone. So the conversation needs to begin when a decision is being made, not end when a decision is being made.
Well, that is beautiful, Senator, and I'm going to give you the last word there, other than to tell us how they can find you and support your amazing work there, taking your own personal story of adoption, successful adoption, and using that to glorify the Lord and to improve public policy in South Carolina and throughout our country. How can we find you, though?
Well, thank you for asking that, Craig. I'm easily found on my email address, and I answer my wife and I both receive every email, and it's Mike Rickenbaugh at scsenate.gov. So Mike Rickenbaugh at scsenate.gov.
And that is how you get a hold of the senator. Senator, it's been a privilege to have you on the show. It's been a privilege to have you in our class of the Statesmen Academy and to see your career and how God is using you in the legislature there in that state senate. Folks, if you've not done it already, we need you to take your mouse, find your way over to Christians Engaged at the Family Policy Alliance website. This is where Christians take the pledge to vote 4 times every 1 year instead of 1 time every 4 years. Imagine the difference that we'd make if 40% of us, 40% sit out even presidential elections. If we start voting, folks, the country changes from the bottom up, from our kitchen tables out and up toward the White House instead of the other way around. We need you to take the pledge. Join us. Senator, it's been a privilege to be with you today. God bless you all in South Carolina, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate you.
Thank you.